You're not going to believe what the world just saw happen in Seattle. The FIFA World Cup brought huge crowds, international cameras and global attention to the city. It should have been Seattle's showcase. The waterfront packed, the stadium alive, transit carrying record crowds, hotels, bars, restaurants hoping for the biggest tourism boost in years. But just a short walk from the party, Seattle's Chinatown International District was watching the windfall pass it by. Business owners said foot traffic was weak. Some reported sales actually falling. Community leaders protested, accusing City Hall of letting crime, disorder and open-air drug activity turn their neighbourhood into a dumping ground. Then there is Aurora Avenue, where residents, after years of shootings and street disorder, built their own barricades with steel planters to stop car-linked violence from using their side streets. Residents said it worked. The city removed them. And then there's Starbucks. The mayor, who once told people not to buy Starbucks, has now admitted the boycott comments caused more harm than good, while Starbucks builds a $100 million corporate hub in Nashville. That's the story. The World Cup was supposed to show Seattle at its best. Instead, it exposed what City Hall wanted hidden. Hey Patriots, it's Andy. This is the news the establishment doesn't want you to see. Smack the like button, hit subscribe, and let's get right into it. So, we're going to start with the timing. Seattle was one of America's host cities for the 2026 World Cup. That's not a normal event. It's the biggest sporting tournament on earth. Fans from across the country and around the world poured into host cities. Transit agencies prepared, hotels prepared, restaurants prepared, local governments prepared. Seattle had a chance to show itself as clean, safe, organised and open for business, and in some places it worked. Pioneer Square saw crowds, the waterfront saw energy. Some bars and soccer-related venues had good days. Public transit handled huge loads, and the city had moments where it looked like a real international destination. But the story was uneven. The Guardian reported that the Seattle business had mixed results, with some saying the expected boom didn't arrive, and that certain small businesses saw disappointing foot traffic. The Sun also reported that some Seattle businesses complained the World Cup did not bring expected local boost outside selected areas like Pioneer Square and the waterfront. That unevenness matters because a healthy city spreads opportunity. A broken city funnels visitors through a few sanitised corridors, while struggling neighbourhoods are left behind. And that is exactly what residents in the Chinatown International District are saying. What happened? Have a look at this. This is from Fox News. I'm going to play you a small excerpt of it now.
I keep seeing the same recurring types of crime. I see homeless encampments being moved around. It's been really tough, and we're not seeing any real good solutions. We have a new mayor in the city. I'm hoping she's going to step up and do something different than the last mayor, and it just hasn't happened yet.
We're all a little worried about what this current administration will bring. I think it all goes to the experience of what does the average business owner or person living in neighborhoods are able to see. Do we feel safer?
And to all those who opposed my election and are skeptical of my leadership.
Katie Wilson, a first-time candidate with no political background.
I'm very aware that there is anxiety and fear in some circles. Standing up to Trump.
Seattle, where you have a liberal/communist mayor.
I say tough luck.
Does not have any experience.
New era of leadership.
I say this is your city too. As a progressive and as a socialist, I believe in good governance.
Now, the Chinatown International District should have benefited. It's pretty close to the stadium. It's got restaurants, shops, history and culture. Should have been full of fans looking for food, drinks and something real outside the stadium bubble. Instead, local business owners say they were skipped. They say visitors used the area as a transfer point, a rideshare pickup or a place to pass through, not a place to stay. And the reason they give is safety. For years, residents and shop owners have complained about open-air drug use, encampments, crime, vandalism and disorder. They say City Hall allowed the neighbourhood to carry problems that other parts of the city wouldn't tolerate. This is why the protests matter. They're not right-wing activists flying in from outside. They're local Chinese and Vietnamese business owners, immigrant families, people who built businesses in a historic community, people who believed the World Cup might finally bring customers through the door. Instead, they say the tourists stayed away. One community leader's reported phrase cuts through all the consultant language. A human dumping ground. That's a devastating accusation, because Katie Wilson's entire political brand is built around defending marginalised communities. And here's one of those communities saying, "You abandoned us." City Hall's response is the problem. When residents complain that their neighbourhood is unsafe, empty and ignored during the biggest tourism event Seattle may ever host, they don't need jargon. They need action. They need visible policing. They need sanitation. They need drug enforcement, outreach and accountability. They need visitors directed into the neighbourhood safely. And they need a city that treats them like a priority, not a sacrifice zone. Instead, residents hear phrases about energy being put into visitor distribution and getting people outside the downtown corridor. That's bureaucratic fog. The businesses do not need a speech about corridors. They need customers. They don't need a memo about equity. They need the sidewalks safe enough for tourists to walk down them. And this is where progressive city government often collapses. It knows the language of community. It knows the language of inclusion, and it knows the language of marginalisation. But when the actual community asks for public order, the government gets uncomfortable, because public order requires enforcement. Enforcement, of course, offends ideology, so nothing ever gets fixed. Then the neighbourhood suffers, and the politicians still claim to be its champions. That's why the CID story is so powerful. It exposes the gap between the slogan and the street. Have a look at this.
You see the stadium is full, Pioneer Square is full of people, the waterfront is crowded, yet in Chinatown there's nothing but empty tables. How is that possible? Well, the Chinatown International District is home to some of the finest restaurants in Seattle. People travel from around the region to come and eat here. And to the world, to experience our food, culture, and hospitality, this should be a destination, not a neighborhood that people simply walk through or drive through and skip us. So instead of too many visitors are using Chinatown as a rideshare, and we didn't want to be here today. We thought the city, the county, and the state would step up and help our community. We wanted to work with everybody. We believe our concerns need to be heard. We believe that we stay patient, that we would have one of the biggest sporting events benefit our community.
Now let's move to Aurora Avenue. It's one of the most disturbing local government stories in America. Residents there have reported repeated shootings, prostitution activity, human trafficking concerns, speeding cars, and dangerous street disorder. According to local reporting, one bullet entered a home and passed near a crib where a 6-week-old baby was sleeping. That's the kind of moment that breaks a neighbourhood, because once a bullet enters a baby's room, people stop waiting politely for City Hall. They act. So what did residents do? They built their own barricades, steel planters, dirt, gravel, physical obstacles to stop cars using side streets as escape routes or circuits for criminal activity. They weren't trying to beautify a corner. They were trying to survive. And residents said the barriers worked. They reported several days without the usual gunfire. They pointed to nearby city-installed barriers that had already reduced activity on other blocks. Their argument was simple. We asked the city for help. The city delayed. We did the job ourselves. It worked. Then City Hall, what did they do? They removed the barriers. The official reason was emergency access. Fire trucks and ambulances need to move. That's a legitimate concern, of course it is, but the residents' question is also legitimate. Why can the city act quickly to remove barriers, but not quickly to stop the gunfire that made residents build them in the first place? That's the value statement, isn't it? When citizens act without permission, City Hall moved fast. When residents begged for safety, City Hall moves slowly. That's what people notice. The city said unpermitted barriers could be dangerous. Fine, then install proper ones and do it now. Don't remove the effective ones, announce another study, and replace them with barriers that, cars can just drive around. Don't tell families who've lived through shootings that the process needs more process. They've already lived the study. The study's in their walls. The study's in shell casings, and the study's in the father saying he could have lost his baby. Seattle's government should have treated Aurora Avenue like an emergency. Instead, residents felt they had to create their own emergency response. Then the government treated the residents' response as the problem. It's backwards. And this is not a left-right issue at street level. No parent cares about ideology when bullets come through the front of their house. No business owner cares about theory when customers are afraid to walk in. And no resident cares about academic language when the street outside their home belongs to criminals. The first job of government is safety. If it can't provide that, the rest, well, it's just theatre, isn't it? Have a look at this. Now, this is a short piece from Como News, and it shows you a little bit about the self-made gun barriers. CID in Aurora, this part is almost comical. Before taking office, Katie Wilson joined a Starbucks union picket line and urged people not to buy Starbucks. That was a remarkable move. Starbucks is not just a company, it's one of Seattle's defining brands. It was founded in Seattle. Its name is tied to the city around the world, and a mayor-elect telling people not to buy from one of the city's most famous companies is political theatre with real economic consequences. Then reality hit. Starbucks announced a $100 million corporate office in Nashville. Up to 2,000 jobs over 5 years. The company says it's keeping its global headquarters in Seattle. That must be said. It's not Starbucks fully leaving Seattle, but its growth is going elsewhere, and growth is the future of any business. New jobs, new teams, new investment, new tax base. Nashville gets all the expansion. Seattle gets reassurance statements. Then Wilson walked the boycott back. She told the New York Times the comments caused more harm than good. Well, that's a stunning admission, isn't it? Because a boycott is an economic weapon. She fired at her own city's flagship employer. Then when business leaders reacted, she had to soften her language. The lesson's obvious. You can't govern a city by attacking the companies that fund it, employ it, and define it. Then came the coffee counter diplomacy. At a public event, Wilson reportedly joked that she'd gone to the Pike Place Starbucks and ordered a blueberry muffin latte, saying she guessed she'd broken her boycott. That line's funny on the surface, but politically it's very revealing. In November, you get don't buy Starbucks, and by May, that caused more harm than good. And in June, she bought a coffee. That's what happens when activist politics meets executive responsibility. As an activist, you can boycott, and as a mayor, you need payrolls. As an activist, you can denounce companies. As a mayor, you need them. As an activist, you can demand purity. As a mayor, you need cash, you need revenue. That transition is exposing Wilson pretty big, and it's exposing the whole democratic socialist urban model. They campaign against the people who pay the bills. Then once in office, they realise the bills are very real. Starbucks is not morally pure. No major corporation ever is. Workers have legitimate grievances. Unions and the disputes are very real. But a mayor's job is not to perform activism against her own city's employers. Her job is to improve working conditions while keeping employers invested. That's harder than chanting on a picket line. But governing is supposed to be harder than campaigning. Now if we step back, we've got the CID, Aurora Avenue, Starbucks. They look like three separate stories, but they're actually one story. In the Chinatown International District, the city failed to provide safe streets, and the immigrant business owners it claims to champion lost the World Cup windfall. On Aurora Avenue, the city failed to provide safety. Residents protected themselves, and City Hall moved quickly to remove their solution. With Starbucks, the city's mayor attacked a flagship employer, then walked it back when the economic reality became impossible to ignore. fail to protect, punish self-protection, attack the funders, then apologise. That's the cycle, and underneath it all, it sits economic backdrop from our previous Seattle video. Office stress, budget pressure, high taxes, business anxiety, Starbucks expanding Nashville, Amazon growing across the lake, downtown still recovering unevenly. And this is what buy politics looks like once the camera leaves the university forum. The millionaires and major employers have options. The CID shopkeepers don't, and neither do the Aurora families. The barista facing layoffs or store closures doesn't have options either. The ordinary resident gets the consequences, and that's the brutal truth. Socialism promises to fight for the working class, but in city after city, the working class gets the bill for the ideology. So here's the bottom line. The World Cup should have been Seattle's victory lap. Instead, it became a warning label. The city proved it can handle big crowds in certain corridors. It proved public transit can shine on event days, and it proved Seattle has energy, culture, and global appeal. But it also showed the cracks. The Chinatown International District didn't feel the benefit the way it should have. Aurora Avenue residents felt forced to build their own safety infrastructure. The city moved faster against the planters than it had against the violence that inspired them in the first place. And the mayor who told people not to buy Starbucks now admits that rhetoric caused more harm than good, while Starbucks invests in Nashville. This is what happens when activists become executives and discover that slogans don't run cities. A city needs safety, it needs solvency, it needs business, and it needs trust, and it needs a government to protect residents before managing any optics. Katie Wilson, Seattle is still early in its term. There's plenty of time to correct the course, but correction requires a little bit of humility. It requires admitting that safe streets are not right-wing, business retention is not betrayal, and enforcement isn't oppression. And waving goodbye to taxpayers is not a budget strategy. The world came to Seattle for football. It left with a lesson in what happens when ideology meets reality. Let me know what you think in the comments. Which story says the most about Seattle's government? The CID ghost town, the Aurora barricades, or the mayor walking back a Starbucks boycott with a blueberry muffin latte? And can Seattle still turn this around, or is it already too far down the same road as New York and Chicago? Because from where I'm sitting, it's very simple. A government's first job is not the slogan, it's safety. And if people have to build their own barricades, the slogan has already failed. Smack the like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is the news the establishment doesn't want you to see. I'm Andy. God bless America. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.